Right, and so because this is a part 2 to what we did last time, and not everyone here was present then, I will just call their names and I will just ask them to share how long they've been homeschooling and how many children they have, okay? And so firstly, because I'll go in order of my screen, I will ask Bernadette Francis to share.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Bernadette Francis. I began homeschooling 20 years ago, and I'm the mother of 5 children, ranging in ages from 14 to going on 26. That's it in
a nutshell. And then I'll ask Tracy Ann King to share with us.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I have been homeschooling for a little over 2 years now. My children are 7 and 9 years old.
Thanks, Tracy. And now we have Cory Graham.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Yeah, I have 2 children, 5 years and almost 6 months.
And next we have Josanne Cox.
Cox. I have 3 children, and I also have my nephew who lives with me. The children are 7,
11. Oh, I think Josanne's internet is giving a little bit of trouble, right? So yeah, it's giving us she's frozen, so I'll have to send her a message, right? But Josanne, are you hearing us? You froze a bit, so we didn't hear the ages of the children.
7, 9, and 10.
Right, children are 7, 9.
I've been homeschooling for about 8 years, 7, 8 years.
Right, or 8 years now, right? And for everyone, I realized I did not introduce myself. My name is Fiona Rajkumar, and I too am a homeschooling parent. I have been homeschooling for a little while now. My first daughter is 12, but you will see I'm hesitant because I knew I wanted to homeschool before I had children. And so I came into the education of my children with a homeschooling sort of philosophy or mindset, if you can say that there's one. And so my eldest daughter is now 12 and a half. She'll be 13 this year. And so we've been homeschooling since then. And so we want to dive straight into the topic, which is scheduling. And so scheduling for the homeschooling parent is an interesting thing because you have to be sort of intentional, right? Last time when we were doing our session, if I could just like really quickly, I did some points, so I'm going to just share the screen. Some of the things that our families would have said. Right, so is everyone seeing the screen? Right, so these are some of the points that we look at. Everyone generally tends to have some block of schedule time to work with their children, okay? It doesn't have to be from 8 to 4, but you have a block of schedule time that you're able to put aside to actually do work with your children. It may be in the morning when everyone is fresh. It may be in the afternoon because you may work, but you have some time, right? Also to have some kind of routine. And so we said routine as opposed to, it may not be a 9 to 9:30, you have a hard and fast timetable. Some people have that, but it's also important to have a routine so that the children know that, okay, this is the general time that we begin. This is the time that we may have a break, we may have lunch, we may, we have different things we do. So there's a routine that helps. It helps to mitigate against chaos, right? But also to be flexible because life happens. Sometimes you may have to go to the doctor, you may have chores, errands to run, emergencies may take place. So also be flexible with your routine or your schedule. We also spoke about the fact that life can be seen as a foundation for education. And so it's not just about sit down academics. And most parents talk about as they go through, as they homeschool, you realize that more and more you incorporate life and the learning aspects of life into teaching your children. Whether it be if they're in the kitchen with you, they're working on chores, you're out in the garden, you're going to the grocery, you will always find experiences, real life experiences that can be integrated into your curriculum. We talked about the importance of teaching children skills, even as they learn from life. And that, so the skills are not just, again, subjects, reading, writing, math, right? They are life skills that are really necessary for their development, because it is about preparing children for life in its entirety. And we also spoke about incorporating interest-led learning into the curriculum. And this is, and both Bernadette and Josanne spoke about this. Josanne follows up unschooling philosophy, and Bernadette worked with some of her children with special needs. And so even in her experience with them, she shared that aspects of the concept of unschooling really also helped her as she worked with her special needs children, and using the interest of children, the natural interest that your children may have and express, incorporate that into schooling. And sometimes you may find it becomes easier to work with them because they have a say in what they're learning, but it's also what they're interested in, right? And so those were some of the tips that we shared last time. And today we want to look at how do we actually protect that block of time we may put aside for homeschooling, right? So I will ask each parent to share, how do you manage things like your household duties? So for instance, your food preparation, your laundry, your cleaning. Can you share if you've had periods of time where you've had someone to help you or not? How did you manage those very real aspects of life? Because I remember when I first started homeschooling, if I turned around in the kitchen and then I decided I was going to make lunch and whatever, then it would be lunchtime, and the block of time that I might have wanted to use to read or to do some penmanship would have been gone. And I work on afternoons. And so in the beginning, that was a bit of a challenge. So how do you work with that? So I'll ask Bernadette to start. So it'll be Bernadette, then Tracy, then Cory, then Josanne. So this is the order on my screen.
Hi, good morning again, everyone. Fiona, you're putting me in trouble here because I have so many ranges of time that I homeschool and things differed.
Correct, correct.
I don't want to usurp everybody's answers, So you still want me to go first?
Okay, right. I understand what Cory is saying, yes. I understand what you mean, because you've been doing this for the longest time. So all of our lifespans would be incorporated into what you would say. So I'm thinking with it.
Yes or no, whatever.
Yeah. Go ahead. Don't give us the whole bits, but maybe start off with when your children were younger. What did you do with when they were younger?
Okay, sure. So just to give you a little snapshot of my life, I always wanted to be an at-home mom. I was a working mother when I got pregnant and resigned with my maternity leave. I was home with my first for about a year until I had to go back out because of economic circumstances. Came back home when she was about 4, I think it was. Got her into preschool, private school, that kind of stuff. But by the time she was going on 6, she was back out and we began homeschooling. So at that point in time, she was going on 6. I had a young one, a toddler, who was just going on 2 years old. And so that kept us busy juggling the young one and having to teach, to actively teach. So in our household, we kept mornings for homeschooling. So we would loosely start around 8:30, and by lunchtime we were done. Before homeschooling, we were an eat food for lunch family. But with the advent of homeschooling, I quickly realized that was an impossible task, to have a meal prepared in addition to everything else I had to do with the children, caring for young man and teaching young lady. So we went to sandwiches, oatmeal, granola type cereals. That was lunch. And then after what I would call school, for the minds of my young children, because school was all day, every day. But after that sort of formal time that was dedicated to school, we would get to chores. And as much as possible, trying to integrate my 6-year-old at the time into things like laundry, where you can sort. So she was learning sorting and, home economics along the way. We would have used very practical activities that lined up with chores to teach subjects as well. But still, I had a curriculum. It's not that I was unschooling at that point, but I was just using life to teach as you went along. For chores, I tried as much as possible to get all my chores done before my husband came home. He had a very demanding job, and to me, when he comes home, I want him to come home to fresh and let's relax together as a family. So I guarded my late afternoons, or I should say I guarded my evenings and my weekends from household chores as much as possible. So the regular routine things like cleaning and laundry and cooking, I tried to get done from after lunch through to by the time my husband got home. I guess I can pause there.
Thanks, Bernadette. What about you, Tracy?
Well, my children are still pretty young, 7 and 9. And what we try to do is retain the traditional school hours because that's kind of like work best for us. So typically like around 8:30 till around 2:30 will be the block of time that we have designated for teaching, instruction, and those kind of things, but is not really fixed in each child or the both children like carry throughout the day because I teach the both of them, so that we have lots of breaks in between to allow me the time to work with each child individual because what we do is more or less individual work. But as you know, like things change, particularly with COVID, and as the little one is like a bit older, we kind of start a little bit later and we incorporate like much more of their learning into the other things that we do like around the home. My chores, I kind of have like a whole household approach. So they are like pretty much involved. Some of the things that they do might be laundry, washing wares, cleaning up their general space. So they're more involved in that. And we do those things in afternoons. Sometimes I do meals before school actually starts. And we do meal prep on the weekend and sometimes during the week also. So I kind of more cook and stuff as things come up. We don't really have like traditional meals. So when the food finishes, we get more food. But those are like basic like items that we do throughout like the day and stuff. Yeah.
Thanks, Tracy. What about you, Cory?
Yeah, well,
homeschooling dad.
my
When do you
yeah,
cook and wash and clean?
all right, let me go back to my presentation now. That's good. Well, I don't quite cook. I to jump on that, I kind of support because especially with younger children, you have to kind of keep them away from the kitchen, and it's just easier that one person could focus and so on. We kind of trade depending on the situation, but the easier thing is my wife cooks and I just kind of do more outdoors activities. My situation is interesting because we just have a new baby, but I guess previously, personally, I used to try to block out the first 2 hours because I realized for my son, is like once you get those wheels of his brain turning, then it's likely that you will get other things done in the day. And I also one of the things in terms of scheduling is like when you give the child nothing and they're just seeing you doing some stuff, sometimes that's really big for learning and so on. So I kind of try to remember that instead of just only giving them the video. But specific, once I do the kind of 2 hours in the morning, I also work, and my wife works outside of the home, but I work inside of the home. I work from home. I tend to work at night and mainly in the morning. So sometimes 3 a.m., 4 a.m. or whatever the case is. But what happens is I kind of start the day later in terms of like he would kind of maybe have breakfast at 9 and then by 10. And sometimes that really helps because if I have a client or I need to get anything done, I have a little time to at least set it up, even if I have to finish it like during breakfast or something like that. So that's kind of how work goes for me. And then during the day, then I would try to, once I do that morning time, especially since I'm following a particular curriculum, what I do is as soon as I have an idea for maybe a video or something on YouTube, something about sharks or that kind of stuff, if something comes up in the day, then I just kind of pull from that mental list. That's how I will be able to manage the work and also the other, and also I also manage the child. But now with the baby, at least right now, some days, well, my wife doesn't work every day, and some days his grandfather comes over, so that really helps in terms of dealing with her. But you know, like, uh, what happens next is going to be a big deal because she's just about 6 months and she's now going to start to creep and scream and really scream and all that rest of stuff. So I'm not sure about the multiple part, but in terms of managing, like, I guess working from home, that's kind of how I do it. I kind of have a focus time for work, and then have a focus time for the homeschooling, and block those 2 times out hardcore. And then, well, for us, we live on a compound with other children. So one of the saving graces of COVID is that once it hits 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, I literally don't see him until 7 o'clock sometimes, or 8 o'clock, which I absolutely love. But I'm now getting a little fearful because it looks like these vaccines are coming pretty soon. So that's me. That's me in a nutshell. I guess people can ask questions and stuff after that.
Thanks, Cory. What about you, Juice?
All right. Hi, yeah, hi, everybody. Well, my days go as flexible as this is my 4th location since this meeting started. So that's usually how our sessions go as well. We bounce from area to area to area. You know, I'm outside now, so we're mainly outside. Sometimes we're by a table, but sometimes we're in the forest, or sometimes we're by the stream. You know, in terms of incorporating the household chores, I would have spent some time in the early days, you know, getting them to, not getting, but teaching them how to attend to themselves. So at this point, I don't have to get up to make breakfast for them. They more or less see about themselves. As well as for lunch and so on, we actually incorporate Trini. It's Trini cooking with Natasha. So we decide on recipes. Let me just say this, you know, so there may be the perception that unschooling is impulsive and so on. And there is a bit of that. There's quite a bit of flexibility, but there's also substantial planning involved. Yes. So I plan in 2-week blocks, you know, so that helps quite a lot in terms of compiling what their interests are, what they want to do. And of course, these things may change. Some things may change over the 2 weeks, but more or less, we know what we're going to do. Right, so the cooking. So, yeah, Trini cooking with Natasha is part of the living curriculum that we have in terms of preparing the meals. The children do that as well, and I'm there to help facilitate. You know, so you just make sure that we have all the ingredients, and of course, built into that is, yes, your cooking, which is a science, and there's the literacy because you have to read these recipes. There's the math. There's quite a lot of stuff in there. You know, I do the laundry. But they fold, you know, so they sort and they fold, you know, their own clothing. In terms of the chores, well, I think I spoke a bit on that last day, where we don't call them chores, we call them household services. Okay, so, and they would we agreed, you know, that for some services you'll get paid like $1 or $2 and so on, you know, and I'm seeing that, you know, the children are really managing their money well, you know. So they also have to pay for snacks, but but there's a catch in that. If it is that they prepare their own snacks, if it is that, you know, they prepare or they cook or whatever, they do their own snacks like cakes or whatever, then okay, that's for free. I'm not going to charge you for that, right? And so they have this thing where they're not eating any of the snacks that I bought, you know. They just want to make, so they don't have to pay. Right. Yeah, so things like sweeping the floor, washing the dishes, everybody's on a roster. All right. And I will do the heavier stuff like the pots, and I'll do the glasses and so on, you know. because I'm looking at the development as well, and I might, like my eldest girl might, I'll let her do the glasses, you know, but in terms of like coordination, I mean, even as adults, we break stuff, you know. So yeah, but the heavier stuff like the pots and so on, I will do, they handle the rest, and everybody's on a roster. Yeah, and I get a bonus sometimes for like washing the car, you know, that sort of thing. Yeah. Or just using the initiative and yeah, they'll get a little something for using the initiative and taking it going beyond the goal. You know. That was the end of the questions. Or is there something else that you wanted me to address?
No, that's it for the while.
Yeah.
Until I
Okay.
come up with another part. So so I'm hoping that persons are saying so far that, you know, families run differently, right? So if you're at home, your circumstance will be different. If you have younger children, your circumstances will be different. If you're working and homeschooling, your circumstances will be different as well. And so, for instance, like for our family, I never stopped working because I never felt led to stop working, right? And my job facilitated us to continue working with the children, but it meant that it would be different, you know? And so for me up front, I had to kind of, it is still a work in progress to understand that, you know, as a working homeschooling mom, that my circumstances were different. And so some of the things that a completely at home mom would do, I would not be able to do with the children. I struggled with that a bit, you know? But, you know, we've learned to adjust. We've had help, and I will ask the other families to share about that. We have had help at different times in our homeschooling journey. So, you know, in the beginning, my mom helped. Well, the first 5 months or so with my first daughter, when she was 5 months, I went back out to work, and there were times when she was there in the office with me, and my husband and I would take turns watching her in her car seat. And in the office, you know, she was fairly well behaved then. And then my mom came alongside us, and she helped us for, I would say, about 3 years. And so she was a nurse at the time. And so she worked at Mount Hope, and we lived in St. Joseph, and she would come over after work, and she would stay with my first daughter. And then I would go to work, to classes. My classes would generally be completed by lunchtime. And then I would come home. And then at that time, I worked with her in the afternoon. When my mom could no longer do this, and I was pregnant with my second baby, I wasn't very well at all. And so we actually had somebody who was with us for 4 days a week for 2.5 years, while I juggled with having a young baby and working. I went back to work when she was almost 1, and homeschooling. And so that was really helpful when she was younger. And so you'll see at different, you know, times in your life, you do different things. And so when I had the help, we could actually have lunch. We still actually are a lunch for lunch family, interestingly enough. And I've been doing calisthenics to do that, because I remember one day I gave the children sandwiches, and they're like, we don't eat sandwiches for lunch in this house, we eat food. And I was like, oh my God. And Bernadette is laughing. Well, I only have 2. So, you know, if I had 5, they would have probably had to eat bread. But because I work on afternoons, they definitely don't have food for dinner. And so similarly to Josanne, they've learned to care for themselves in that way from quite young. And so I have a roster. At first it was on the fridge, but now Ashka, my older daughter, has it committed to memory. And they know on afternoons what they have to prepare. And I make sure it's there. And I am not around, I am teaching. Now, before it was on campus, now it is on Zoom, but away from them. And so when I come home, they know they have to eat, they have to take their baths, they have to have their teeth brushed, they have to at least not have the place in a state where I will be screaming when I come into the house, and so that the afternoon can wind down, you know. And so the schedule is a different one when you're working according to when, you know, what time your work is, your job is. And so now, so I would want to share ask the families to share, have there been periods of time when you've needed more support than others? And who has supported you? Has it been a family member? Have you had paid help? Who have you worked with? So Bernadette, you can go first, or Josanne's mic is on. So Josanne, you can go ahead as your mic is on.
Did she get stuck, Fiona?
It seems so. It seems so.
So I'll go.
Okay, go ahead, Bernadette. Yeah.
answer big yes. Yes, there were seasons in our child rearing where we did need help. So by the time I had now my third baby, let's say that first one would be 1 year old. I have a 5-year-old and a 9-year-old at this point. I would have had the blessing of getting a helper to come one sometimes and then eventually twice a week. So she would handle the general cleaning so that the things like sweeping, mopping, doing windows, I would not have that kind of, all the toilets and bathrooms. It was just like a maintenance cleaning in between I would have to do, but she would do like the big clean. One of the things that I would also have her do was assist with cooking, and she would cook on one of the days, and on that day I would do like major cooking. I adopted the habit of cooking and freezing. So on one particular day, she might burst 2 to 3 pounds of lentils. No, let me just go to the 3. I'm now up to 4. 3 pounds of lentils and a huge pot of callaloo, like maybe 3 bundles, 2 to 3 bundles of callaloo. And so she would cook that, and then she'd probably just boil rice and stew chicken for us to eat that day. But the balance of the peas and the callaloo would get parceled out in portions and frozen. Then the following week when she cooked, she might burst chana and red beans, and we parcel that out and put it away. Then the following week, I might buy a case of chicken, and she would clean all the chicken and parcel it out and freeze it, so that at any point in time, during the week when she's not there, because it was just 2 days we could afford, I could go in the fridge and just take out, okay, what will we have today? Black beans, and I can stew some chicken, so I take out a parcel of cleaned and seasoned chicken and callaloo. And so I just boil rice and throw that either in the oven to bake or a quick stew, and it made my afternoon cooking much lighter. Even now that I no longer have help, I still cook like that. So I have a standing freezer apart from the regular 2-door, where we store frozen cooked food for the most part, so that you do it once and then all the other days are lighter, you have less to do. So as life went along, by the time we had all 5 children, so by then the ages would be, I'd have a newborn, a 2-year-old, a 4-year-old, an 8-year-old, a 12-year-old. 2 of these children are special needs that have developmental theory to be done. Yes, I need help for 5 days a week, because it was just a lot of juggling. You're doing the education side of it, you're doing the therapy side of it, you're doing what was most important to us, the child rearing, the raising, the training, the conversations that you have along the way as life happens, to train a citizen, to train a thinking, mindful human. Doing all of that and the cooking, cleaning, washing, it was too much. And we were really blessed to have a beautiful woman who the children knew as Miss Sandra, but she was like an auntie. She became like an auntie, and Fiona, I see you smiling because you would come to school group and she's your children's auntie too. And she was really, really a blessing to our family. She was with us 5 days a week. And yeah, so that's the help thing. I wanted to comment on what Josanne said, because one of the things she said, it was very important, where, well, she has a system where she calls Chores services, and she pays the kids a little dollar here, a dollar there. You have parents of young children, you have no idea the great life learning that is occurring when you don't give your children money, but you have them earn it. I see it now in my adult children, particularly my adult daughter who's married, and she compares her experience to that of her friends and the financial trouble that they find themselves in because they don't have the value for the dollar that they earn. So if your ones are little, It's a wonderful way to, if they need something, give them the opportunity to wash the car or cut the grass or sweep the backyard, and let them earn little $2, $5, what have you. It's an invaluable life lesson. I'll stop there.
Thanks, Jules. What about you, Tracy? I will Tracy and Josanne and Cory to share about help along the way.
We kind of do our chores and stuff on our own. We never really had hired help during our time homeschooling, probably for about 2 months while I was out of work. But that was really like a short stint. So we do mostly everything in-house. We do more of the heavy lifting. They do mop and stuff in between, but it's more like teaching them, and it's not really quite perfect at that stage. But we take it with stride, and they learn as they go along. So the chores we designate more or less Saturdays in the morning time predominantly for that now at this time, or on afternoons when our typical school time is finished. That's where I will do like maybe some of the stuff in the kitchen. We do lunch, typical lunch during the day, and in the afternoons for dinner, it would be like lighter stuff. But on the weekends, I will prep like granola. I will do some of these things that Bernadette mentioned. But I may kind of start off hot and sweaty and do stuff for like about 2-3 weeks of the month. And it would just kind of like go for that time. And after we just kind of revert into as needed. But seasoning meat, I would do that for about maybe 1 or 2 weeks when I go to the market. I would also do the shopping and stuff on the weekend, typically, or late in the evenings. So it's kind of like more or less how things come up, but we do meal preps almost every day. So almost every day of the week, I will have some type of kitchen activity to do, whether it's cutting a veggie, cutting a pumpkin. I freeze items and I freeze the vegetables and the whatever we do, but it's not necessarily in bulk. So just kind of like how things come along there.
Mm-hmm.
That's it?
Yes, thanks, Trace. What about you, Cory?
Yeah, well, we did have some help initially. It was just like a long time person who worked with my wife's family who different families around. She had like a day she would go in and assist with different things, and then she also helped us out, kind of to support her also. But then well, she got a little old for that, so then it was just us. Then there was COVID, so right now we are more or less managing ourselves, along with some support with Grandpa, who comes in sometimes. But generally, we do all this stuff ourselves. I guess because we're now transitioning to more multiple children, we kind of just manage everything ourselves. A lot of the cooking stuff and meal prep stuff, we do that. I go to the market on weekends, that kind of stuff. So we mainly use the morning is blocked out, and then the afternoon is kind of filled with all this other stuff, whether it be chores, whether it be supporting work. Because I find when you teach a concept in the morning and then you can relate it to something being done in the afternoon, like that is really, really powerful. And I'm actually here taking a lot of notes, especially the thing about the children with services, because I think my son is just now at that point. Maybe that's one of the differences with my experience versus everyone else on the panel, because my son is just about 5 where he now could kind of manage himself more independently. So we're now kind of stepping into that realm of, giving hard and fast chores where I don't have to supervise him or you don't have to be next to him for him to do. So I'm actually just listening and thinking a lot. And actually, a client messaged me while this was going on, and I had to do something quickly too. So that's just how days have been like for me. Mm-hmm. Like is really live and continuing. But what we do is we try to do, especially Sundays in particular, is our kind of heavy meal prep day. Anything that we need to do, and then in the week, like Wednesday is set up. What I would do is I would do outside activity with the children. So take my son to ride, and I would take my daughter to walk, And during that time, then my wife would take a rest, do any other meal prep and so on, and just stuff around the house. And then in terms of cleaning, we tend to do that more on weekends, but we try to break it up during the week. I think my biggest point to this whole thing of life in general is they got some things when you were alone, like you might have changed the bed one time and change the bed sheets or whatever. With homeschooling, sometimes maybe that might take a whole day. You do a little piece every time you pass, you do a little piece, you do a little piece, you do a little piece. And then because things are so busy, especially with younger children, my wife gets me all the time, but I just leave things literally in the middle of the road. Like I know I have to come back and do this. And if I put it at the side, I'm gonna forget it. So I literally leave it in the doorway or things like that. And it's just getting real. Like that's the way it gets done. And sometimes at the end of the day, you're like, wow, it's done. And I don't have to do it anymore. So that's it. I wrote down some points. Yeah. And well, I guess another thing too is like my son too is at that age where he talks a lot, and to be sometimes have to respond to a client and deep thought, or I'm thinking about a project, or even just thinking about something to do around the home, and he is going at 1,000,000 miles an hour talking about Hot Wheels cars. And Daddy, did you see that? Like that's really where it gets challenging. But I guess my 2 cents is like your situation is different. And I learned this especially from my group and sharing and stuff. Your situation is different. There are a lot of little things that children do that are similar to everybody. It's not that your child is super different or anything. And once you start to understand that, then you just live with it and try not to compare yourself with the Joneses. Maybe I'm the only person qualified to say this, but when another woman opens her door and you look inside her place and it's looking perfect, just take a deep breath. Yours don't have to be like that. All right, that's probably why I'm here. And you know what? Things are in the middle of the road because they get done at the end of the day. And I think try not to carry over things to another day because then things delay. I know it's hard, but if something carries over for 3 days, then try to get to it, whatever it is. It might just be ice in the fridge or whatever it is. So yeah, that's my 2 cents for now.
Thanks, Cory. What about you, Josanne, in terms of having help along the years?
Okay, I'm hoping you can hear me.
Yes, we can. Yeah, we've seen another location, number 5. But no, now you're frozen. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
She's frozen. Let me
Hi, Fiona.
Yes, go ahead, Tracy. Okay.
She back.
Josanne, we weren't hearing you, so you're back now.
Okay. Let's hope this lasts. This is my 6th month.
Yeah, the internet. Internet.
Okay, yeah,
go ahead, Tracy.
The internet.
Yeah.
As Cory was speaking in terms of how organized or maybe unstructured or disorganized different homes will be, I think I just wanted to share that it's because of our own individuality and our own personality where we will kind of load more time into particular things, even around the home. Yeah. So for me, nutrition and activity are important. So those will have more time in my home. So where I will spend probably more time on meal prep and organizing a particular type of meal, but I am not necessarily a house person at all. So the general cleanliness and a little bit of order, not exactly things are not matched and coordinated and alphabetized and all these kind of things. Those things already matter much to me. So I am really not a house person. But stuff in the kitchen, more or less, and not necessarily in design and stuff, but more around food. Yeah, those will receive more time and dedication and maybe attention even for the children and those things too.
Yeah. Actually, I got a quick tidbit because I live on a compound. There's about 19 apartments. Well, they have single apartments, but let's say it's about maybe 6 families. with children. Because of COVID, obviously everybody's doing homeschooling essentially right now. And over the Christmas holidays, like because the whole thing about waking up later in the day or however your day is set up, is always something that plays in the back of your mind, I think, because of school and work and that kind of stuff. And I found that because other people now have that opportunity to build their own schedule to some degree, over the Christmas holidays, I realized like we were kind of put together in the sense that because we are so accustomed to being home and doing things at home and stuff, like even on Christmas Day, we went to just drop off presents and stuff. It was like 10, almost 11 in the day, and like nobody was up. I mean, it was like literally, it was like we were knocking on the doors at 6 a.m. and that kind of stuff. And it just really hit home to me that while you might be in the back of your mind because of society and stuff, you're comparing, well, look, these people are up at 7 o'clock and this and that or whatever. But it's just their reality and the demands on their schedule. The demands on your schedule are different, so you're going to be different, and it's okay. And it really, really showed me like so many things that I probably would think about, like, the children going to bed later or waking up later in the day and that kind of stuff, and comments from grandparents and all of that. Like it really showed me that now when people have similar demands, they do the same thing or even worse in a lot of cases. So it's just interesting when you think about your scheduling and society pressures and all that.
Yeah. Josanne, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, good. Go ahead. Yes, go ahead.
Yes, I'll speak without the video. Okay, yes. So the children are pretty close in age, like a year and a half apart. So I had the first, when I had Kayla, my eldest, we were in a smaller space and I was able more or less to manage okay with her. I mean, where I go, she would go, but then, my son came along and we were in a bigger space, and he was also a very sickly child. So I had a sickly infant and a toddler in a new space. And it was too much, so because so mentally, emotionally, physically, it was too much. And again, I had I had a couple of C-sections and that kind of thing as well. So yeah, I mean, I was never diagnosed, but there were quite a few symptoms of postpartum, and I had also, a lot of difficulty with attachment to my son, so I mean, there's all those things to consider, and because that's part of life, so yeah, we needed help, and so we called in our Auntie Pat. Now this is someone who would have attended to my husband and his family since he was a baby, so she just came in, and I mean, I loved her and the children loved her, and but of course, she got ill after a while, and so she's no longer with us, so my house is no longer spotless, but that's okay. But we really love her and we always check for her, yeah, so like Bernadette, I mean, she would help with these seasoning of meats, and I mean, so just to pull out and do whatever you have to do during the week, yeah. So, but, and I want to say this because it's important to say, I think it's okay to ask for help, and I remember we had a visitor sometime, and she was, she had an infant and she had, I think, a toddler, maybe it was about 3 or 4, and she had all her bags and things coming in. She and said, well, let me help you. And she said, no, if you can do it, I can do it. I said, I have help. I said, is it okay if I help you? Would you accept it? And then she handed me her bags to take upstairs, and so that's important to say. We cannot be all things to all people, and it's okay to just ask for help, because the fact is I did have a breakdown, earlier, when with just the 2 who were more or less babies, and there was just too much to do. yeah, so there was another question attached to that, Fiona. What was it?
I can't remember at this point.
Right. So
How did you manage when you had number 3?
Oh, by number. Oh, right. So I was worried. I was worried that what will happen? How would I cook or whatever? But Auntie Pat was still there, so she was able to still help with the house and so on. But in terms of the homeschooling, yeah, I was worried about that a little. But during the pregnancy, because I'm really really hands-on, so I prepared a lot of manipulatives and and the healing process wasn't as because there was another C-section, right? So the healing process wasn't as long as as previously. So yeah, and she was a pretty they're not good babies. There's none of that. But she had a really good temperament, So if you hear her cry, that's a phenomenon, So yeah, she was So but she rode and tumbled with us. We up in the hills. She there, we out the road in the stroller. She's there, calm. She's there, So we didn't I didn't have any difficulty with her because of the temperament. But I imagine, with a child who, if I had another jury, oh my God, that would have been very difficult for me, Yeah. It's something different when you have a child who might be a little bit sickly or have another issue, But we managed okay. But it is very important to always check on your mental health.
Yeah.
How am I feeling right now? Am I coping okay? Why am I feeling angry?
Yes.
And all this sadness, where is the sadness coming from? So it's a matter of always checking in with yourself, because attending to yourself so that you can better attend to.
Yes, definitely. Yes, go ahead, Bernadette. I know that this is like really important to you as well, because I mean, when I first met you, that was one of the things that you said to me, if you cannot take care of yourself and if you are not in order, you cannot attend to your family well. Go ahead.
What else? And so again, for the young families out here, what Josanne is saying is very important. Ask for help. If you need help, ask for help. Beyond asking for help and getting help, what I haven't, well, the question wasn't asked, but I see time is going.
Yeah, go ahead.
What I didn't hear is, when do you take a break?
Yes.
Most, and Fiona would know that is one of the mantras I have sung over the years with our homeschool group. You need to take a break. Take off the super mom cape or the super dad cape, wash it, fold it, and put it away. We are not superhuman. So into your schedule, we schedule for everyone else but ourselves. That tends to be the temptation, and we put ourselves on the back burners. Try to put in every week just a couple hours where you could just pull aside and do something that energizes you, that fills you. Now, you're trying to put aside for every week, right? It's not going to happen for every week. But if I tell you once a month, it's not going to happen at all.
For months.
But every week, you might get it twice a month, which can suffice. And I will tell you, I learned the lesson the hard way, just like many of us here may be learning it today. Or you may be experiencing that near burnout, frustrated, on the verge of falling apart syndrome, or you may have fallen apart. I remember it was a helper during the course of time when I had about 3 going on 4 children. She used to come twice a week, and she encouraged me. She used to call me Auntie B. Auntie B, go and take a break now. Go in the mall and walk. And I began a habit of on a Monday at around midday when I finished school. Miss Julie used to work for me up until 2 o'clock. She said, don't worry, I going home to watch Walls. You go. And I would go, Cinemas 8 had opened, and if there was a good show that was starting at 12, I would go and watch a movie. If there was no good movie to watch, I would go to Burger King and buy a burger and have a book, or take a newspaper and just read the newspaper and eat a burger, all by myself. It doesn't sound like a lot,
No.
but when I reach home, you feel like a new woman. You feel like you could play with your children, that like you want to, or you want to cook a special meal. It energizes you. So take a break and ask for help. Again, Cory said you open some other lady house and you see it looking nice and shiny. That's good for that lady. You be you. You know, do the best with what you have. Be content, and let other people. But you keep your safe, your place, your safe space. Yeah,
Yeah.
Fiona.
Thanks for sharing that, Burnett. I think that's going to be the point of our next session in getting into more details and getting people to share. How can you, do that? How can you tend to yourself and tend to your mental health and your physical health as well? Cory, I saw your hand up, so let me let you speak. And then we'll get other people to share.
Yeah, well, I mean, I could leave my stuff for the final thing. It was on the mental health point, so it depends on how you want to do it.
Okay, yeah. So I just had one little, an experience that I'm currently going through. You go through cycles as you homeschool. Last year was a tough year for my family, because my husband wasn't so well in the middle of COVID, and then we couldn't have help. And so by the end of the year, there was no real time I could have for myself. And teaching hours as an online university lecturer became even longer, and they were more. So by the end of the year, I felt completely burnt out. And I was upset about a lot of things because it was Christmas and I couldn't do anything and I had grades. And I remember sitting down feeling frustrated. And it's like I told God, I don't understand. I stopped going on Facebook because I didn't want to see what people were doing for Christmas. I didn't want to see any DIY projects because I could do none of that. And it would just make me feel more angry. And I just felt as though God was saying, you have enough, you have too much. Start being more intentional. And so since December, I've started going through my home and clearing things, just giving away, getting rid of things I don't use, just clearing and giving to, you may have like a whole lot of bowl sets that are really nice, but of course your family can't use it. They just, we have traditions in the country, in Trinidad, Caribbean people. You have these beautiful hutches with all these nice bowls that it's too much for you to use, who passed down from your grandmother, your auntie, your nenen. You have a whole lot of things that you're not using. And so I just started to give to people, to give to families because it was Christmas and families needed things. And I'd never stopped. I've continued. And it has been so lightening and freeing for me. I had this goal where I need to see the corners of my home. And so if there's junk in the corner, let's get rid of the junk in the corner if it's not being used. And so that has helped me a great deal because I set a goal for myself in terms of I wanted to be able to care for my home, because I think what frightened me with COVID is that I didn't have access to the help that I needed. And my mother was not well, so that's out of the question. And so I wanted my home to come to a point where it was simple enough. And like Tracy, I'm not a fancy person, very simple, but that I could keep my home in order without help if I needed to, and not feel anxious. What I was feeling was anxiety. And I didn't know it at the time, but it was anxiety. I was afraid. And so I'm getting there. And what I realized, it's becoming more of a joy and less of a chore to be able to clear, because it is becoming more manageable. And so that is something we could consider as well. Sometimes you may have so many things and want so many more things because you may have this ideal in your head that my home must look like this, whether it is. So I don't go on Pinterest at all, because there are certain things that just tempt you. And maybe I need to have this and have that. It must look like this. And this is the ideal. So I stay away from those things. What is the ideal for us? What can we manage as a family? What brings us joy as a family? And let's what bring other people joy. And admire that, but not that it is for me, So to keep things manageable, for me, that is a very important part of my mental health, because too much clutter, I can't manage. It affects my brain negatively. It makes me feel depressed. But then if it is too much for me to clean, that is depressing as well, because then I need help to manage my own clutter, So these are some of the things that we can consider as well in terms of making our spaces more manageable. Do you have 1 million toys and 2 children? Then maybe it's too much if they are not able to manage their own toys to some extent. And, there's a room full of toys and a mess at the end of the day, and you can't begin to pick it up. And so these are some of the things we can think about as well in terms of how much we have And are we able to manage? And do we want more and more and more? Because experts tell us that more and more and more is what we need to be happy or to be fulfilled or contented, you know, when it may be the opposite. Maybe we need less so we can clear our minds and our spaces. So I want some of the families to share, you know, what do you think about some of what we are saying? What are some of the tips that you use to help you? I know some families are homeschooling families and some families are not homeschooling families, but they are at home with their children right now. So what are some of the tips that you might have had that are helpful to you? What are some of the challenges you find that you are facing during this time? So you can just put on your mic and you can share. You can say your name as well. If anybody has a question to that they might want to pose to a specific person.
Hi,
Hi,
everyone.
good day. Are the two of us talking?
Okay, so I'll take Tajma and then Reshma.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Tajma Harsha, and I've been homeschooling for about 3 years. My kids are 4 and 6 years old. I just want to say thank you for the session because it did help me to feel a little bit more comfortable with certain things I struggle with myself. For one, when Cory mentioned the scheduling, you know, a lot of the friends that we have typical schedules where families work from 8 to 4, kids must be up for online schooling from 8 o'clock, etc. But that's not our scenario. I work from home, and my husband as well is self-employed. So we don't have that set time schedule. You know, there are some times that we are up working at 10 o'clock at night. And there are some times when the demands of the day, work-wise, don't really fall on us until about 8, 9 o'clock in the day. So we find that homeschooling a little later works better for our kids. For me personally, like between 7 and 9 o'clock in the morning are my busiest work hours. So I definitely do not even want them to be awake at that time. I want them sleeping and out of my hair. So when my friends find out that, you know, my kids wake up around 9:30 in the morning, they're like, what, 9:30? That's too late. The kids should be up earlier than that. But why? Why should they be up earlier if that's not the best thing for our family and for our flow? So it helped to know that there are other families who really realize that they have to adjust for what is working for them. And also my kids are not that young, not babies anymore, but we do have help. We have help 3 days a week. And it has really been a blessing for us too, because though the basic academics are easy enough to manage for the two of them and they're old enough to do a few things independently, I do have a son with special needs, so I find that I have a lot more to do than just the regular academics. There is therapy to be done during the week, several times, several hours. And having somebody come in to help is an area where I feel, if I'm not comparing to homeschoolers, like just regular other people, most of my other friends don't have help. So it's something I don't feel comfortable talking about, but it's a reality of our day. We do need the help. It's not really a luxury. It's essential for us. So it helps to see that so many of us homeschooling moms have also had to hire help to just get things done. Because for a long time, I felt like, oh my gosh, why can't I just manage my home myself? Why can't I just do it all myself? Like, you know, the other person does. But homeschooling is a whole different scenario. And if we are ready to invest that time in our kids, sometimes we have no choice but to just get outside help. So that's what I wanted to say. Thank you for sharing. And it really did help me to feel a bit more confident about our own approach.
Thanks, Tajma. Go ahead, Reshma.
Hi everyone.
Morning.
So I'm not homeschooling per se. I live in Guyana right now, and my son goes to school here. But with the online schooling, they have a very packed timetable for the kids, and my son is 7. I just have one child. He's 7. Well, will be 7 next month. Um, but I've found that he needs the attention. He needs someone to guide him through at this age, to guide him through the timetable throughout the day. I find that it's really tough having to sit in front of a computer from 8:30 in the morning till 3 o'clock in the evening, and that is what they expect. So I kind of work with him how we feel comfortable working. So we do some worksheets, we take a break, and we don't go by, I don't tell them this, but we don't go by the schedule that they have. And we just sort of make it how we are comfortable doing it. In the morning time, he's most productive. We do most of the work in the morning. By lunchtime, we be tapering off, we sit in, we do the reading with the teacher online. But and we also finish up a bit earlier in the week. So on Friday, like today, we are taking a break. I mean, we sit with the teacher when it's time to log in with her, but otherwise, I'm not forcing him to do a paper and I have found that it works for us like that. And I really appreciate you all sharing this information and I feel like I can so relate to this. Appreciate it. And I would really like to hear more. If you're having another session, I'd love to be invited. It's enlightening. What I'm thinking too is if and when we return to Trinidad, I want to know more about this, and if that's a route that I can take. I'd like to know more about the technicalities of it though, like dealing with the ministry and that type of thing. How do you all
Sure.
deal
I have
with
a
that?
video I'll send to you, Rishma. We'll chat. Yeah, we'll definitely
Great,
chat.
great.
We'll chat.
Thank you all so much.
You're welcome. Anybody else wants to share?
Hi, good morning.
Good morning, Pamela.
All right, hi. So I'm new to the homeschooling. My husband and I, he's known as well, Michael John. We are now in the process of starting our son on his homeschool journey. So I'm really glad that I hooked up with Miss Bernadette and that I was able to get in on this. I was able to get the other videos. So I did my homework for the past few days, listening up and catching up. And I'm really glad. I had a lot of preconceived ideas of what homeschooling looks like. And these sessions really cleared up that in my mind. And I feel more confident now going into this homeschool thing. I am a teacher by profession, early childhood. And going into this now, it's new and exciting. And I'm really glad to have this wealth of persons, these wealth of people, men and women that I can learn from and work together with on this journey, knowing that I'm not alone. We are not alone. We are not in our corner. We are in deep south. We are in Erin. So we are not alone in this thing because first thing you hear when you tell someone, oh, we are homeschooling, you think, but what about socializing of your child and all these different things. So these sessions really cleared up questions that I had before, and it has really encouraged my husband and I, Michael and I, to really go forward with this thing. And I feel we are more equipped now with this knowledge than we were before, because it was on our heart, was in our mind, but then doing it, how to go about it, how to begin was our challenge. So I'm thankful to you all, ladies and gentlemen, for the time and the effort that you all have taken, and for the years of knowledge that you all have and is giving to us. So I thank you very much for that.
You're welcome, Pamela. Anyone else?
Good morning
Good morning.
to all. Yeah.
This is
My name
Lindley.
is Jeanette.
Jeanette.
Yes, it is. My situation is unique, different from all the others. I'm not a mom, I'm a grandmom. My daughter died in 2017. At that time, her daughter was preparing the SCA exam. She was just 5 months away from the SCA exam. So I'm left with the responsibility of taking care of her. So she didn't get her first choice. She passed her second choice, which was Southeast for the Spain. The first term was pretty okay and coming down. But during this COVID time, I realized she's getting stressed out. Sometimes teachers not coming on the Zoom and stuff like that. And what I discovered also, I'm having her doing extra lessons, private lessons, maths. And the grades she gets from the private lessons is far different what she does in school. So I haven't started. I'm considering doing homeschooling. So I'm just checking in here to get little ideas how to start, because I already know how to start with the ministry and stuff like that. So I'll be grateful to get ideas, and whatever decision I have to make, just get some help from anyone. Thank you all.
I'm putting up my number so you can give me a call, Fiona. You can give me a
Okay, thanks a
call
lot.
at a later time, right? And we'll see what information we can give you to hear what you really would like to do with your granddaughter and see how we can help
Okay.
you.
Okay, thanks a lot.
You're welcome. Would anyone else like to share?
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Daniel.
Hi, how are you doing, Fiona?
I'm good.
I think I have a schedule in my head that we should be working with. I have no idea what it is yet, but it's a constant trying to, I guess you're still with social pressures, trying to figure out what works for you and stuff like that. My husband works Monday to Saturday. He's back to like regular working hours as of next month, which is going to be like 2 hours longer every day. And I'm home with two boys who are 4 and 7, who talk constantly and are going at full speed every day. So today is actually my day off. Luckily, I have grandparents. Well, my parents take them to our extended family house. So I have Friday off, which means I'm supposed to be doing my work for an online company that I work for. So I have a day dedicated to making phone calls because I can't. They still need me so much during the day that I have no time to make phone calls with them around. So it's balancing. So Monday to Tuesday is full your time. My husband does the cooking, which I've noticed is probably strange in most houses. He does the food prep, he does the cooking. If during the week, it means I just have to warm up food, whether it's dal, rice, or whatever. And maybe the boys and I cook like a side dish. They cook something. So I think it's nice sharing what other people's schedules look like, but then you have to know, you have to do what works for you.
That's correct.
Yeah, and make it your own. So
yes.
Thanks everybody for sharing.
You're welcome, Daniel. So even as we wind down, would anybody else like to share?
Hello.
Good morning.
Hi. Hi everyone, I should say at first. The homeschooling process is still fairly new to me and my family. Although my husband and I have often wanted to do it since we had our first daughter, circumstances, I guess, were also a bit different in the beginning. One, because we weren't fully supported when it came to our families and doing it. And so at that point in time, we just decided to put our daughter in school. What caused us to actually go into homeschooling was the fact that my husband got a job in Guyana in university, and we decided to move all together. And because there's nobody here that we could like depend on besides each other, we decided that I would have been the stay-at-home parents and we would have homeschooled our children at that point in time. I felt at the beginning that it was a strange situation for me because I had a daughter that was in school until she was like about 12. And as soon as she did see, literally as soon as she did see, we flew out and came to Guyana. And my son was in standard 1 at the time, and I had a 4-year-old that was in preschool. So when we came here, it was an adjustment because we were family-oriented people to adjust to this new environment, and it was a lot mentally. And so I honestly felt in the beginning when I decided to take on the task of homeschooling that it was a lot, because I felt like, okay, I used to teach and I had the expectation, well, I had this handled. Nobody could tell me I have this handle, guys. I'm a mother, I could be a teacher. This is nothing. And then I realized it's a whole different process mentally to separate myself as a teacher and a mom. It was like a clash for me in the situation. now I am slowly adjusting to it, and I could say that I'm very grateful for this session. I missed the first one, but I was able to come for this one, and I'm very grateful for it because I felt as though I always had to compete with this illusion of what every time I research homeschooling, you're seeing these perfect setups, and your mom is like on time, and I was like, but this is not me though. I'm not going through this. So where can I find somebody that could understand? Because now I started to feel like I wasn't doing enough. I was not. I started to feel like I was not doing enough, and unfortunately for us, I don't have anybody that I could rely on in our situation. It's just my husband and myself working between his schedule. We are also trying to be entrepreneurs at the same point in time, and we're trying to include the children. So rather than stress myself on the situation, which I did in the beginning, to the point that my friend had to tell me, honey, calm down. You said you wanted to homeschool, just enjoy the process. Just enjoy the process and not stress yourself out. So now what I also had to do is listen to my children. I had to actually pay attention to my children and hear what they were telling me when I was trying to force the conventional structure in a home environment. That was really hard in the beginning for me. So now I had to actually pay attention to them. And what I am learning in the process is that I'm not the only person that is teaching. I'm also being taught from my kids and from the experience as to how I'm supposed to be as a person. And it's actually helped me because there are things I didn't even know about myself that I'm learning now in the process. And I'm also learning that I need to have a lot of patience in this process because it's not easy dealing with three different children of three different ages, three different personalities, three different wants and needs. It's a lot. And then trying to balance your life as the caretaker or parent in the household as well. But I am really grateful for it because I feel like I needed a community that I could come to and hear and talk to, because I being here and away from my family, there's nobody that we could have communicated with that could understand. And I think we felt braver to take the chance to homeschool now because it was just us all together without the voices behind our heads thinking that, what happened, as somebody mentioned earlier about the socialization of the children, are you going to be able to do enough to educate your children by yourself? And so it was also the mindset of being able to think that I'm capable as the parent of the child to do what I need to do to have my child equipped to be able to function on their own outside. And knowing that I've been the teacher from the beginning. How did my child learn to speak and talk before I put them out into the industry and preschool? It started from the foundation that was at home in the first place. So that's why I slowly start to appreciate that I might not be perfect. I might not have the same circumstances as everybody else, but what I can offer my child is based on me, and I could take that and move steps forward. And again, I will emphasize that I'm really appreciative because hearing from the different parents and different situations, I don't feel as alone as I felt in the beginning of the process, knowing that it's okay to not be perfect, to have your own individual process to getting stuff done, and it's okay to take time for yourself in the process and not feeling guilty for not being able to give all the time and be the superhero Wonder Woman that everybody expects of you in the scenario. So I just want to say thank you to you all for doing this. I felt like it was needed a long time ago, so I'm just grateful that it has happened. Because I'm all the way here in Guyana, so I cannot come home, and I think that's the next situation dealing with them. My children, we usually fly out at in between odd times. So that's why I never put them in school here, because we weren't staying for the entire school period while we were here. We would travel in between school times to come home. And so the fact that COVID happened and we couldn't be out there, I realized that my kids had, it affected them mentally. And I also had to incorporate that into the process of learning and kind of putting mental health as a priority and letting them understand it is important to say when you're not feeling okay. It is important to give time to yourself, and as well as learning that for myself. So again, thank you everybody so much for this. I don't know if I could emphasize how grateful I am for having this forum right now. Thank you so much, and I hope everybody has a blessed day and weekend.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing. So we're gonna wrap up now. So I will just ask Bernadette and Tracy and Cory and Jusan if they have any last any last thoughts that they'd want to leave, and then we will wrap up. And yes, we will continue these sessions. I think they're very important and helpful. And yes, so we have some additional ideas coming up as well, taking into consideration some of what we spoke about, looking at mental health and caring and caring for yourself. I guess socialization is something we could, have a session and speak to some more as well, So yeah, so you look out for the links, everyone. So yes, go ahead, Bernadette.
I didn't have any last remarks prepared.
Okay. No, well,
but it was great being with you guys, and I look forward to whenever next Fiona would invite me onto the forum to share again a little bit of my life, and hope that it can be helpful to you.
Thank you. Trace?
Yeah, I want to echo the sentiments of everyone else and even the persons in the chat. It was great being here, great hearing, even as I shared about my own journey and the circumstances of my life, and being part of the community, and everyone was able to share and to know of the differences and know that there's not one particular set way, and we just kind of enjoy the journey, and we make homeschooling like a part of our home, and it fits into the properties of what we have, defined for our home and our family and the things that we want. And homeschooling comes along and part of that, and that shape it into a mold of something else or anyone else particular home. So thanks, everyone.
Yeah, well said, Trace. I think that's a really good and healthy way of looking at it. You know what you want for your home and for your family, and so you let that shape how you homeschool your children. Go ahead, Cory.
Yeah, thanks everyone for sharing, especially on the mental health. My wife is a psychologist, and
yes.
I guess I had my own challenges. One thing that I did learn from her, which I think you're homeschooling for this reason, is some days she would say, I just need a mental health day. And literally within half hour, we'll be packed up and we'll be in the car heading to Maracas Beach. We spend all day on the beach, and
that's
everything
tomorrow.
just dropped. Yeah, and doing things during the week and off peak times are amazing.
Correct.
It's cheaper, is lovely. That's a big part of why homeschool, and the children will get a lot of education from just being outside there and looking at things. So that's a big part. Fiona was talking about declutter your life, and I agree with that. I would say just remove drama situations and people. You just don't have time for that.
Yeah.
Just
Correct.
don't do that. And my wife and I was back and forth about this particular suggestion, but since I heard a lot of people trying to be doing business and entrepreneurship and that kind of stuff, and that's my background, I would say my 2 cents is just get a fitness watch, because it measures your sleep. And if any day you decide you have like half a day or something to kill, you could actually look back at your sleep and see how much hours you slept, and then decide if it's a productive thing to sleep for those 3 or 4 hours that you have. And sleep could be productive.
I
Right?
completely agree.
and yes, there are some that are $300, $200 or whatever, but there are also some that are $20. This is US quoting. So get one and fool around with it, and then you could decide if you want to, if it's something to invest in. But I have found like moving and exercise really helps, because there was one point with my son when he was younger and I was just at home. When I realized like I wasn't moving and my heart rate was low, I realized my thoughts were down in the dumps. And once I started to walk around and that kind of stuff and so on, and we have suggested this to other people who went through this in our group, and it made a difference. So mental health and general health, keep your health going.
Yeah.
And the whole idea that some families don't need help. They might not have paid help, but they might have some auntie or their sister that comes in and does XYZ with the children, or a neighbor that the children spend 2 hours playing with their children and that kind of stuff. And they have focus time that they could be in the kitchen knowing their children are well, doing stuff. So just focus on you and do what your life demands. That's it for me.
Mm-hmm. We definitely, I
Or-
think we definitely go in with the health and the physical health and the mental health next session. I'm hearing the echoes. I think we definitely will go there in a couple of weeks' time. Go ahead, Juice.
Sounds good.
I actually shared a little bit more than I planned to, but if anyone is blessed by it, then that is sufficient. So my parting words would be to just keep checking in with yourself.
Yeah. Well, it's 11:59, and so we've come to the end of our third session for this term. And I even this morning when I was taking my own little mental health walk, I got up earlier to be able to walk before we had our session and to be able to prepare lunch before we had our session, so we can have lunch after. I was really thinking about that in terms of this being something, this being, we would usually have face-to-face meetings, but in this way, we're able to meet a wider range of people. And you're able to probably have your children some part of the home. You don't have to go and look for childcare to be able to attend a physical meeting, even though when we did have physical meetings, we tried to make it plausible for people to bring their children. But then we have our friends in Guyana and other parts of the Caribbean who are also able to attend. So, it's going forward, we can definitely work on building an online homeschool association community where we can meet and we can discuss and we can share and we can support each other and we can draw strength from each other's experiences. Okay, so that's it for today's session. So I recorded the session. Very true, Kathy. Very true. A friend was sharing in the background, the Bible has so many good verses about the importance of rest, how we treat ourselves, so that we won't tire out, and we're able to continue, because homeschooling, I guess if I have to make a comment, homeschooling it's not a sprint. It's not like, if for some of us, it's not something we're just doing for a term. It's a marathon. And so you have to pace yourself, and that can be a good thing, because you don't have to feel as though you have to have everything perfect now and rush everything now. You look at the span, whether it is 5 years you're doing it for primary school, or if you're going longer than that. And so you have your short-term goals, your long-term goals, and you consistently and steadily walk towards those goals. You may fall down, you may stumble, you may trip, but you get up and you continue. And so part of what the association is for is to help us as we are along that journey together, right? So we're going to end now.